Hi, girls and boys. I'm going to talk about a very handy name in our household, proteins. What are proteins? We're going to discuss about them. We're going to talk about the composition of proteins, food sources, classification, and much more. So, when I say the word protein, we're talking about the complex organic nitrogenous substances found in animals and plant tissues. They are nitrogenous substances basically, and they are essential for life processes. All the life which we lead is basically dependent on proteins. All the basic functions of life depends on protein. Indeed, no form of life exists without proteins. They are found in every cell, made up the contractile elements and enzymes that catalyze the metabolic reactions in the body. So these are proteins. Let's learn about the chemical composition of proteins. These are the complex organic compounds containing carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and in addition they also contain nitrogen and sulfur, and sometimes iron, phosphorus, iodine, and copper. Proteins are made up of chains of amino acids which are classified by number of amino acids in the chain. So let's classify how many amino acids are there and what are the chains called as. So when I say dipeptides, I mean there are 2 amino acids are there. Tripeptides, 3 amino acids. Polypeptides, more than 10 amino acids. And proteins, there are more than 50 amino acids. So typically 100 to 1000 amino acids are linked together. Proteins are classified into 2 categories. Either they are complete proteins or they are incomplete proteins. So the complete proteins contain all essential amino acids in sufficient quantity and ratio to supply the body's need. These proteins are of animal origin, for example milk and milk products, meat, poultry products and fish. The quality of these protein is much superior to incomplete protein. And when I say incomplete proteins, they are deficient in one or more of the essential amino acids. Basically, when we are discussing about complete and incomplete proteins, we are talking about the amino acid content or whatever content is there in those kinds of proteins. So all plant-based sources of proteins are incomplete proteins: cereals, pulses, nuts and oilseeds, vegetables and fruits. So gelatin is the only animal protein which is an incomplete protein as it lacks 3 essential amino acids. So only when we talk about gelatin, it is not full protein because it doesn't have 3 essential amino acids. The information on protein cannot be complete if we don't talk about essential, non-essential and conditionally essential amino acids. Essential amino acids are those which cannot be synthesized by the body and must be provided in the diet. Very important because our body is not able to provide those essential amino acids and we need to take it as a supplement. These 10 essential amino acids are methionine, isoleucine, leucine, lysine, threonine, tryptophan, valine, phenylalanine, histidine, arginine. Then there are non-essential amino acids which are 9 in number, and these can be synthesized by the body and they need not be supplied through diet. They are cysteine, then cysteine, proline, glycine, serine, alanine, aspartic acid, glutamic acid and triosine. Then there are some amino acids which cannot be synthesized due to illness or lack of necessary precursors. For example, premature infants lack sufficient enzymes needed to create arginine. A very important topic, biological value of proteins. It is directly proportional to the nitrogen absorbed from diet and which is actually retained by the body. The greater the proportion of nitrogen retained, the higher is the biological value of protein or quality of protein. So all animal proteins are of high biological value The biological value of proteins in the plants are not very great, but they can be increased by complementing, that is combination of a cereal and a pulse. For example, you can make rice kheer, khichdi, idli and dosa. So here you are going to have a combination of different cereals and pulses. So when you have the biological value of proteins, that increases. So here we can see in this chart the bioavailability index chart. So whey protein has got lots of protein content in it. So whey is basically it's a kind of liquid remaining after milk gets curdled. If you're making paneer at home, so the milk which is remaining once you make paneer, the water which is left, that is whey, and it is really very nutritious. People usually throw it, but it is suggested by people that we should be consuming it. So it's easy if you can just make a curry out of it. Curry is kind of a liquid dish which we make with curd, and if you add curd into whey and then make curry out of it, it is very nutritious. You can even make dough out of it. When you are making atta bana rahe hain, then you can add that and you can make a dough out of it. If you can consume it directly, it will be really good. And whole egg has got 100, cow's milk is 91, egg white is 88, fish 83, beef 80, chicken 79, casein 77, rice 74, soy 59, wheat 54, beans 49, peanuts 43. Coming to the functions of proteins, growth and maintenance. Proteins are the chief constituents of tissues, muscles and all organs of the body. They are the main constituents of hair, skin, nails, bones, teeth, blood, serum, etc. All body fluids except bile and urine contains protein. Other than bile and urine in our body, rest everything has got protein. So in case if you see somebody is excreting protein in the urine, so it's a disease. So it's not healthy. Therefore, protein is required for growth and maintenance of every cell in our body. Regulation of body processes are also looked after by protein. They are required for highly specified functions in our body, like immune proteins, antibodies necessary for immunity reactions. They are all protein in nature. They are required mainly for our body's resistance to infections or diseases. So you can see how protein is very important because it forms antibodies, which is very important for the immunity in the body. Then hormones. All hormones are protein in nature except some steroid hormones such as estrogen, progesterone and testosterone. These are only three which are not, otherwise rest are all hormones are protein in nature. All enzymes are protein in nature and they are required at every step of digestion, absorption and metabolism. RNA and DNA, which are the building blocks of our existence basically, they are the nucleoproteins which govern the synthesis of all body proteins. Then contractile proteins, actin and myosin are responsible for the actions of muscles. So imagine how much important are proteins for our body. Hemoglobin is the most important blood protein which carries oxygen and delivers to all parts of the body. Other blood proteins are mainly albumin, which maintains fluid balance of the body, globulin, fights against infections, fibrinogen, responsible for blood clot formation, lipoproteins, carriers of fats and cholesterol in the body. So how much important it is. We should see that a healthy adult should consume enough protein to replace what is used every day, almost 0.8 to 1 gram per kg body weight. Pregnant women, people recovering from surgery or injury, and growing children should consume enough protein to build new tissues. And when there is a deficiency of protein, that can lead to weight loss, anemia, reduced resistance to infections, impaired healing of wounds, easy fatigue and muscle illness. In children, it even leads to protein energy malnutrition. Now, food sources of proteins are animal sources and plant sources. In animal sources, milk and milk products such as curd, buttermilk, paneer, cheese, skimmed milk, meat, poultry, fish, and in plant sources, pulses and legumes, nuts and oil seeds, and soybean. These are the different sources of protein. But what happens if there is excess of amino acids in the body? So when the amino acid pool reaches to its capacity, the amino acids are broken down to the component parts for other uses. Either they are converted to glucose, if they are glucogenic amino acids, through glucogenesis, or else they are converted to fatty acids if they are ketogenic amino acids and are stored as triglycerides in adipose tissues. So how the digestion and absorption of proteins takes place? The digestion of proteins basically begins in the stomach and is completed in the small intestines. Once you have eaten food, the digestion starts in the stomach and then it gets completed in the small intestine. The enzymes that act on proteins are called proteases. The digestive juice secreted in gastric glands present on the stomach walls is called gastric juice. The main components of gastric juice are HCl, pepsinogen, and renin. The food that enters the stomach becomes acidic on mixing with these gastric juices. Then it so happens that the acidic medium converts inactive pepsinogen into active pepsin. The active pepsin then converts proteins into proteases and peptides. So proteins basically gets converted into proteases and peptides with the help of pepsin. The enzyme renin plays an important role in coagulation of milk. So when the milk gets into your stomach, it gets coagulated with the help of enzyme renin. Now coming to the part when the food reaches small intestine, how the digestion takes place over there. The food from stomach is acted upon by juices present in small intestine like pancreatic juice and intestinal juice. So how the action of pancreatic juice takes place over there? Pancreatic juice contains a variety of inactive enzymes such as trypsinogen, chymotrypsinogen, carboxypeptidases. The enzymes are present in an inactivated state. The enzyme enterokinase secreted by intestinal mucosa activates trypsinogen into trypsin. When enterokinase acts on trypsinogen, it converts or gets converted into trypsin plus some inactivate peptides are removed from there. The activated trypsin then activates the other enzymes of pancreatic juice. Chymotrypsinogen is a proteolytic enzyme that breaks down proteins into peptides. Chymotrypsinogen, then it has trypsin acting on that which converts into chymotrypsin, and then chymotrypsin acts on proteins forming peptides. Carboxypeptidases act on carboxyl end of the peptide chain and helps in releasing the last amino acids. Then carboxypeptidase acts on peptides, converting into smaller peptide chains plus amino acids. The proteases hydrolysis peptides, they converted into dipeptides and finally into amino acids. So dipeptidases, they act on dipeptides, converting into amino acids. So if mouth is an organ, the digestive juice secreted is saliva, and action or enzyme and the action is no action which happens there. In stomach, the digestive juice secreted is gastric juice, and pepsin converts all proteins into peptones. In small intestine, pancreatic juices are secreted. Trypsin converts peptones to peptides and polypeptides. In small intestine, intestinal juices are secreted. Peptidases converts peptides and polypeptides to amino acids. Protein absorption takes place in jejunum and ileum portion of the small intestine. This process requires energy. Adenosine triphosphate is that's called ATP. It's the energy source the body utilizes during protein absorption. The body uses the carrier protein transport system to absorb amino acid. Each amino acid group has a carrier protein that is responsible for transporting it from the intestines to the mucous cells. Sodium and potassium are minerals needed for the amino acids to pass from the intestines through the villi and into the bloodstream. Metabolism of proteins, that's growth and maintenance, how they look after the growth and maintenance of the body. It's called transamination. a chemical reaction that transfers an amino group to keto acid to form new amino acids is called transamination. This pathway is responsible for the deamination of most amino acids. This is one of the major degradation pathways which converts essential amino acids to non-essential amino acids. Coming to the urea cycle, it is the major disposal form of amino groups derived from amino acids and accounts for 90% of the nitrogen containing compounds of urine. Most of the nitrogenous waste comes from breakdown of amino acids, which occurs through deamination. Deamination of amino acids results in production of ammonia, NH3. Ammonia is an extremely toxic base and its accumulation in the body would quickly be fatal. However, liver contains a system of enzymes which quickly converts ammonia into urea, and this is called the urea cycle.